We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds, and this is a major function of the CIA.
Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
Welcome back to Notify America. We have multiple pressing stories to get to. Stories that include Michelle Obama being rumored to step into the presidential race. Again, these are just rumors and innuendo, speculation, but there are some signs that this may be in the works. And let's face it, with the president's job approval in the tank, with Donald Trump beating the pants off of him in almost all recent polling, the Democratic establishment is getting nervous. They must be. They've been nervous, but we are getting closer to Election Day. We are now officially in election season, as the entire year in this country is election season, and a decision has to be made sooner rather than later if Joe Biden withdraws from the race or not. At the moment, the Biden campaign says he's running. He has every intention on running and winning the 2024 election, they say. But what are people saying behind the scenes? Well, we have some new information, plus a new interview with Congresswoman Marjorie Greene, where she drops a name, a possible Joe Biden replacement, should Joe decide to step down. But before we get started, press the like button, subscribe, share the video with a friend. All of that helps out with the YouTube algorithm. The first week of 2024 is now behind us, which means we are officially in election season. Let the games begin, let the craziness begin, and in many ways it already has, especially on the Republican side of the aisle. We have Republican hopefuls running around the country, campaigning in state after state. We've been watching Vivek Ramaswamy, for instance, pull a double Grassley, I think they call it, where he visits every single county in the state of Iowa twice in 1 week. Reminds you of Donald Trump, right, who famously worked his tail off, worked like a horse, basically, for the final weeks of the campaign, doing 3, 4, sometimes 5 rallies in different cities and different states each day, all while Joe Biden campaigned from his basement in Delaware. Well, Joe doesn't have an excuse this time. He doesn't have an excuse to just stay home like he did in 2020. All they had to say back then was the Cove. They could stay inside and just blame it on the Cove, and people understood for the most part. Well, not this time, and because of that, and well, let's face it, for a number of other reasons, people are nervous. People are thinking that Joe Biden's not up for the job, lacks the energy to be president. He lacks the energy right now, but if he were to win again, he would end his second term at the age of 86. That's old for anyone. Isn't something to be taken lightly, and it could be why we're now seeing many bigwigs in the Democratic Party coming out and voicing their concern for the upcoming election. One of those people is none other than Michelle Obama, who was just interviewed by CNN, and she says that she's terrified, she says, about the upcoming 2024 election, saying she is terrified about who we select to be president, who speaks for us, how it affects us in ways that we all just take for granted. Watch this.
Former First Lady Michelle Obama said, and this, obviously was very significant. She's raising some alarm bells as far as 2024 is concerned. She says she's terrified, her word, terrified about the election. Listen to this.
What's going to happen in this next election? I am terrified about what could possibly happen because our leaders matter. Who we select, who speaks for us, who holds that bully pulpit. It affects us in ways that sometimes I think people take for granted.
Now, people are saying, they've been saying for a while, but there's a renewed focus all of a sudden on Michelle Obama. If she's preparing to run for the 2024 election, is she going to be or end up being the ultimate Democrat candidate? It's a ton of speculation. And to be honest, if you're a Donald Trump supporter, a Republican, you're probably a little bit nervous about that. Imagining Michelle Obama being the one up there instead of Joe Biden, because let's face it, she is clearly the better choice. She would clearly be the better candidate, and it would be a much tighter race. And one thing's for sure, it's almost impossible to even imagine the Democratic Party, the Democratic machine running Joe Biden again. We just looked at JP Morgan's 2024 predictions. Number 3 on their list, remember, of shock predictions was Joe Biden withdrawing from the race, withdrawing after Super Tuesday. So does that mean that the DNC gets to just select somebody to replace him? And if they do, could it be Michelle Obama? I don't know. There are some interesting coincidences, though. Benny Johnson just interviewed Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she seems to think so. And not only that, she seems to have a lot of other things on her mind. Watch this.
In D.C., you're on committees with access to classified information and a lot of knowledge. You're a very well-known member of Congress. Have you ever heard anything like this?
Well, I can't get into specifics, but I've heard very bad rumors as well. And I can't tell you who told me that and where that came from. But we've heard terrible things. And like I said, the evidence of that has been.
Can you give us some of them? Like what kind of terrible thing?
Well, I would say that what Alex Jones told his viewers is not far off. And that's a terrifying and unfortunate situation. But I'll go a step further. We saw Joe Biden on a trip in a foreign country. I believe it was last year, or perhaps maybe it was 2021. And he fell down and definitely had an accident. And that was hard for them to cover up. But this is the reality of people in their 80s or late stage in life, especially when they suffer from conditions like late stage dementia. Or Alzheimer's. This is where people's faculties fail, and it's not uncommon. But unfortunately, Joe Biden is having it happen to him literally while he is being president of the United States. And this is another reason why I think we'll see them take Joe Biden and replace him with someone like Michelle Obama.
So you're saying that Joe Biden fell and soiled himself on a trip abroad?
That's what I heard happened to him, and that's what many other people were.
All right, so that's Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, Congresswoman MTG, saying that she believes Michelle will end up running. Something else that Benny Johnson pointed out was a number of coincidences between Michelle and Barack pre-election season, how Michelle's been copying Barack's path to the White House. But most people just haven't been paying attention, he said. He posted this on X. Barack had a voter registration organization called Project Vote. Michelle also founded the organization When We All Vote. Barack wrote 2 autobiographies called Dreams for My Father and The Audacity of Hope. Then he says Michelle also wrote 2 biographies, Becoming and The Light We Carry. Barack, he says, also introduced John Kerry at the 2004 DNC, and Michelle introduced Joe Biden at the 2020 DNC. He says Michelle has positioned herself to become the next Democratic presidential nominee exactly like Barack did in 2008. Let me know in the comments, do you think that it's likely to happen that Michelle replaces Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee? Something else to remember, by the way, is that it's possible. Unlike with the Republican National Committee, the DNC has what they call superdelegates, where these party leaders, these party elders, get more votes, right? A lot of Bernie Sanders supporters blame the superdelegates for why he lost the primary, as most superdelegates supported Hillary instead of Biden, they say, or instead of Bernie, they say. So if Biden did step down after Super Tuesday, would they just anoint Michelle Obama? Especially because, after Super Tuesday to the general election, that's not a lot of time. And I don't know if you watched our JP Morgan video, but here's what they say they're predicting will happen. President Biden withdraws sometime between Super Tuesday and the November election, citing health reasons. Biden passes the torch to a replacement candidate named by the Democratic National Committee. Now, these are JP Morgan predictions. Now, keep in mind, these 10 predictions, right, they were made by a guy named Michael Cembalest. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's one of JP Morgan's top financial strategists. Now, they're paid a lot of money to analyze and predict the future. But again, this is just some guy, one of their analysts, one of their strategists who's predicting this. So, I mean, it's just a prediction. Who knows if it's true? Who knows if it's going to come true? But they are JP Morgan. They're paid a lot of money to come up with this data, to come up with these predictions, these forecasts. So, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but also realize that it's not just any random Joe Schmo on the street who's saying this. They use all kinds of data points and open source intel, proprietary intel as well, to come up with these trading strategies and these ideas. But again, who knows? It's just interesting because he says Biden will announce this between Super Tuesday and the November election, which means the Democrats, like I said a minute ago, would have very little time to hold another primary election. I mean, they could technically, but it would give them a good excuse to say, we'll just have the party elders, the party leaders vote on it. And again, with the super delegates that the DNC has, they could just choose Michelle Obama. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. I'll see you next time.